All right, good afternoon, folks. Chris Harris here. Another episode of Voices from the Stables presented to you by Buck Sweet Sports Podcast. We finally got him on. Uh, the man, the myth, the legend. 19
Oh
seasons
gosh.
of doing calling Clinton football games. The J man, Jonathon Griffin. Welcome to the show, Jonathon. How you doing, man?
Doing good, man. Chris, I appreciate you putting all this together, man. I gotta give you props for everything that you've done up to this point. There's a lot of people that love Clinton football. There's a lot of people who will join in and listen to this that don't like Clinton football, but they just love high school football in itself. And Clinton has a storied tradition in itself enough to present enough of material that you bring to be worth a listen. And I think you've done a
Oh
really good
yeah, oh
job
yeah.
of harnessing that. So shout
Okay,
out to you.
well, I appreciate it, man. Like I said, I learned from the best, man. I've been watching y'all for years. And I know I appreciate what you guys do. I know others like me far away that can't make it to the games every Friday night appreciate what you guys do. So I'm really happy to have you on, man. And it was a process. We went through went through a process getting you up here, but we finally got it going, man. All righty.
Right.
So today we're gonna just do a quick breakdown of the game Friday night against Northside and get to what everyone's been waiting for this Friday coming up. A big rivalry game against the Wallace Rose-Hill Bulldogs. But we'll jump right into Friday night. Friday night, Clint took on Northside Jacksonville Monarchs, defeating the Monarchs 40-7. Game where Clint pretty much dominated from start to finish. So, what were some of your observations that you saw?
Well, one of the first things is that I noticed is I don't remember in my 19 years of doing this the last time Clinton had um, so little or so few players going both ways.
Oh yeah,
Um,
oh yeah.
Clinton had when usually in the past there have been times, and I know you remember it too, as being a former player yourself, there were times where when you would turn the ball over on downs, you guys would just switch sides. I mean, it's like, hey, we would just there'd be one or two that would run off, and the other ones would just be like, all right, well, now I went from offensive tackle to defensive tackle. Let's go.
Yep.
Now we tackled the guy instead of blocking the guy. I mean, so it's but I think there was maybe maybe two guys that were going both ways. I think the only one that I could think of right off the top of my head was Josiah Dwyer. Of course, Morris Williams would have probably gone both ways some had he played. But I just the last time I remember a team like that I saw in person was the first game we played the year that we went to the state championship. We played Thomasville at Thomasville. They had
I
Quan
was gonna say
Worley.
the same thing. I was gonna say the same thing.
They had Quan Worley as the running back. We had Nick Cooper. We go all the way out to Thomasville. We got our butts whooped, but
Oh
they
yeah.
had not one single player playing both ways, and that was the first time I had witnessed that. I said, "Man, y'all got enough talent. Y'all ain't got to play nobody both
For
ways.
one A
That's crazy."
one A school at that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, at the time, so that just tells you that's pretty strong when you got enough athletes that you can do that. So I think Clinton this year that's going to help them out as the season progresses because they're not going to be as exhausted
Hmm.
on either side of the ball. So that was one of the first things. The second thing is team speed defensively was just. I mean,
Oh
there's
yeah.
constantly just somebody making a play coming from nowhere and if we could have given out two players of the games Friday night, my second choice would have been Jaden Williams, the sophomore linebacker,
Oh yeah.
because
Oh yeah. He was all over the
he
place.
played some last year as a freshman and showed some plays, but he was all over the place making plays Friday night. So Clint was running a 3-4 scheme, which is a little bit different, than things they've done in the past. Savo, obviously, when he was at the helm, they ran 50,
Mm.
so that he liked to always have an odd front, but he instead of using three, he used five. Um, but it's definitely different, but it's a lot more speed. Those linebackers are clean. Sabo used that term a lot, which, by the way, is he not phenomenal? Like my
Oh yeah,
man
oh
is
yeah. Like I,
brilliant. I feel bad being on the broadcast with him because he knows like more than I'll ever know about football. So I kind of looked at him a lot. And I'm like, dude, what the heck did they just run? He's like, oh man, that was nothing but
oh
they're
yeah.
they're wham blocking. They just pulled their tackles. They're running. They're running. And I'm like, you saw all that quick? He's just man. He's a genius. But
I said,
he mentioned that a lot too. So as far as the offensive side of the ball, we came out early on very vanilla. We're trying to establish the run game, 2 tight end set, which is, Clinton last year went a lot of 3 wide early on in the first part of the game. We had 2 tight end sets. Or if we had 1 tight end, we had an H back in addition to that. Gave it to Josiah McLaurin, I think the first 5 or 6 runs, and it was basically the same play over and over, fake jet, and then they were giving it to him on a run up the middle. But then in the second half, and second and third quarter, we went back. We were in shotgun again, obviously, as we've been every play so far this year. And they would go, 2 wide to one side, single receiver on the other side. A lot of really letting Idarian throw it a lot more in that second and third quarter. And I thought he got going, really looked good on a skinny post or slant to Josiah that led for a long touchdown run. That was one of the things I mentioned on the broadcast that I thought if him and whoever his receiver is at that moment can get that timing down on a slant or a skinny post, it's really hard to guard. If the and it wasn't like a floater, it was like a sharp, just tight,
right on target,
boom, right on the money, and was really excited to see that. But the cover's full right now. But then again, everybody has to calm down because it is Northside Jacksonville, and
yeah.
like we mentioned and you mentioned, they've had two wins in the last 3 seasons.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I mean, there's Coach Pollock, man, he struggled. His son's a quarterback. He's got a good arm, but they just do not have the athletes to match up. At least they didn't this past Friday night, and the schedule doesn't look good for them either because they're in such a hard conference since being up to 3A. But overall, I mean, that's just bird's eye view. That's what I saw from Clinton on Friday night, just for a few of those takes.
Okay, and I got a couple of stats on Friday night. Josiah McLaurin ended up with 165 total yards, 3 total touchdowns. He had 66 rushing, 1 touchdown, 99 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns. Josiah Robinson, 129 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. Let's see here, thought I had the
and that's a quiet 100 what'd you say, 29 yards or 22 yards?
Actually, 127.
That's a quiet 127. That dude,
yeah.
I don't think he ever broke away for a run longer than about maybe 15 yards at the most. But
but he really grinded it out.
Yeah, there was one drive where they kept giving it to him, pounding, and he looked good. He looked real good. But I didn't realize he had that many yards rushing. That was a quiet 127.
Yeah, and the Darian was 5 for 13 for 129 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he also added 48 yards rushing. So I mean, pretty solid stats. Pretty solid stats for the first game. Like I said, I thought the guys looked good. Offensive line was really opening a lot of holes out there. Running backs was running hard. Josiah Robinson's that in the end of the third quarter, that last scoring drive, I mean, really grinded out some really tough running. Josiah McLaurin is Josiah McLaurin, man. He just shows every time he touched the ball exactly why he got the offers he got and why he's going to be playing, football in a Power 5 conference on Saturdays. Defensively, like you said, the team speed, I talked about it during the Jamboree, man. It just seemed like, for you guys up in the booth trying to call, on who's making the tackle, it's kind of hard sometimes. You got 5 or 6 guys right at the ball every single time.
Yeah.
Josiah Dwyer coming off that defensive end. One thing I noticed on film, man, his timing with the snap count is, I mean, as soon as the quarterback snaps the ball, he's taking off. He's gone. Nathan Fowler, he looked great coming up the middle.
Yeah, that's another kid.
Spencer Westerbeek and Josh Pope probably had the most exciting play of the night, man. And I know for you guys, I was so confused. I didn't know what to call it. I looked at it on film and I was like, okay, is it a tip pass and an interception, or was it?
So
It looked like,
so
I mean, it literally like
so
he just knocked the ball out the quarterback's hand, and
yeah,
Josh was just right there to catch it out the air and go for 40 yards for a defensive touchdown. I know me and two
yeah.
of the other newspaper guys were talking online about it. We just like, I don't know what to
Yeah, so in full transparency, because I know if they're listening, they're gonna see this. That was Jace Westerbeek. Spencer, yeah,
yeah. For some reason,
that's all right.
I don't know why I was thinking Spencer Jace,
But
yeah,
but
Jace.
but Jace has always been a Coach Johnson favorite. That is a kid that he's always said since day one. That works hard, and now he's kind of taking a little bit of a backup role, but he can feel good about putting him in. He came off the edge. He had a sack in one part of the game, and he had the other play, the big play that we remember. So he came in, the quarterback had his arm up like he was going to throw it, but then at the last second, he looked like he was going to tuck it back down and just take a
Mm-hmm.
sack. And as the ball was coming down like he was going to tuck it, Jace reached in and knocked it up into the air. And when he did, that's when Pope caught it and took it. So it was technically a fumble, I think, a fumble, scoop and score, if you
Yeah,
will. Um, but it was a big play because we had just gone. I think the previous series was the one where we
snapped it
were
over the
driving.
quarterback's head.
We were driving, and we ended up having to turn it over on downs. And the
Mm-hmm.
very next player to play right after that on that same series when they got the ball back is when that play came. So yeah, so that was a big time play. But yeah, Jace Westerbeek, man, that kid's got a lot of heart.
Oh, yes, sir, yes, sir. Unofficially, I want to say they all said 19 total yards allowed defensively. I mean, that's just like I said, we're not going to get too happy because like I said, it's Jacksonville Northside and they're down, but it just shows how strong that defensively, especially we are this season. And
Yeah,
honestly, I mean, really, the defense had a shutout. I mean, the only hiccup was, the 90-yard kickoff return on special teams. But besides that, defense
yeah.
basically had a shutout. And probably for me personally, one of the most exciting parts of the night, man, I had a coworker, guy I worked with 7 years. I remember his
Oh
son
yeah, I remember
Bryson.
you mentioning it.
I remember his son Bryson when he was playing rec ball, and he would talk to me about the games and the practices and stuff. Seeing him get out there as a freshman, towards the end of the game, JV guys get that interception. I was so excited for them, so I had to call him right away, man. I know
Mazingo.
he's at the game. Bryson Mazingo, man. I was pretty
Yeah,
excited about that. But yeah,
yeah.
just putting a
That was
wrap
that
on the
was
north
fun.
side. Oh, I'm sorry, man.
No, I was just gonna say that's fun. It's always
Oh yeah.
it's always the most fun when you're calling the game when late in the game you get some of the freshmen or JV players that get out there, and then when they make a play or a splash play, as we like to say, um, you're so pumped, and the team was so excited for him. They just rallied right around him right after. It's like everybody got off the bench and went over to him. That was cool to see too.
Oh yeah. But yeah, just putting a wrap on the north side game, man. Great game. Great way to open the season. Like I said, a lot of guys got playing time. And one more note on defensive side, like you got to Amars didn't play. So
Yeah,
knowing your best defensive player wasn't even out there, and the defense still performed the way they did. Like I said, I'm not gonna get too excited, but I mean that's a
yeah.
lot to
Well,
that's a lot to look forward
well,
to,
here's
especially
what's
when
here's what's crazy. I mean, I figure, I guess the only person you take off because you leave Fowler in at the nose guard, and then you got Dwyer at one end and Amaris on the other end in your 3-4 alignment.
that's, that's
that
tough.
that will be
with
that
with
will be
those
tough, but
with those linebackers, I mean, yeah, like I said, that's gonna be tough for any offensive coordinator to have to deal with. But okay, we're gonna start transitioning to the reason why a lot of us are here, man. Big game Friday night, Wallace Rose-Hill Bulldogs, big time rivalry game. In my opinion, the two best 2A teams in the East. I believe this is only going to be the first of two meetings. I believe we will see them again, win or lose. Uh, it's just going to be a matter of when, but big time implications Friday night. I mean, this is the game where you really get to kind of see exactly where you are at this point in the season. Now, don't get me wrong, state championships aren't won week two, but this will give you a really good picture of exactly where this team stands right now. But Wallace is coming off of a 27-28 loss to Havelock. Tough opener for them. Uh, so how are you feeling about Friday?
Well, first, I mean, it's not Wallace versus Clinton. Apparently, it's Wallace versus the 910
Oh yeah,
All Stars.
910 All Stars.
Uh, you know, which Wallace's coach so delightfully gave us, which is kind of funny because even if there are a kid or two that are from the Fayetteville area, Clinton is still in the 910 area, so it's not like it's not like we're calling ourselves the 910 All Stars because we're taking people from like Cumberland County and they're in the 910 area code, but we're not. It's like, no, Clinton is still in the 910 area code. So I just thought that was funny. I can't believe he said it. I think it just provided more bulletin board material for a Clinton team that's already hungry to try to prove that they're tired of some of the banter that's going on behind them. But hey, it's all fun. Anytime you can match up against a great program like Wallace, regardless of whatever may be on the line, it's always going to be a fun one. It's always going to be a dog fight, no pun intended. I think the fact that we got them coming to Clinton, gives us some advantage. The kids get to play in the friendly confines of the stables back home, which is fun. Although we do love going to the dog pound, and we've been successful in the dog pound too.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
So, but this one for me, I think the off-season banter that's been going on. You and I I haven't done much
Oh
posting at
yeah.
all on preps.
You ain't
Um,
missing nothing.
but I have been reading, and there have been some comments that at times I just thought I just scratching my head like, guys, come on, like I can't believe some of the things that you're saying. But to me it's all in good fun, but sometimes it feels like some of it's below the belt. I think this is a little bit heightened. It's got a different feel to it, especially this early in the season than in years past. We got one of our former dark horse players and coaches now over there coaching with Wallace as well, and that brings another little snippet to the whole storyline as well with Coach Mike Bell over there now and wearing the orange and black or orange and white, whichever uniform they decide to pull out. Um, but Wallace is a great program, and you go out and you play the likes of Havelock, and then they play Laney in their jamboree.
Mm-hmm.
They have
And they,
seen phenomenal, talented teams already just right out the bat. So Clinton is not going to put anything in front of them that they hadn't seen to this point in terms of talent. Um, but it's going to be all about execution. Um, the let's just be honest. The wing T has not been a friend to dark horse fans like you and myself to watch us defensively. Between East Duplin running wing T and then you have Wallace running wing T, and I don't even know. Heck, we may Weigel. I don't even know if Weigel's got Joey Price over there. They're probably running the wing T too. We're going to see that again. So Clinton's going to see that offense. How do we come out and do we defend that? You've got a relative also that's in the backfield that's one of the top running backs in the state, regardless of any classification, that's running for Wallace. Can't you tell him
yeah,
to like fight off? That's
yeah,
another storyline. I mean, it's
I got a distant cousin that I should start running back, and I was gonna talk about him a little bit when we dive into some of the guys to watch for Wallace, but yeah, definitely. I agree with everything you've been saying. Like you said, a lot of off-season talk. Like you said, man, and NC Preps right now is buzzing. It's buzzing because this game's coming up and the talk's already begun. But
if you're a dark
just
horse fan, the way things have gone on the way last year ended and this off season and this year, Preps is a toxic place to be right now if you're a dark horse
oh
fan
yeah,
because you've got people coming at you from
all
everywhere.
different ways, man. And I mean, you could be just, talking about some of the positive things we've been doing in the community, and people coming out of there. I'm like, man, we're talking about youth football camp for the kids, and you coming at me with this. Like, it's yeah,
Yeah.
preps is something else. But just a little quick recap of last season. Last season's matchup ended with a 35-18 Wallace victory. One of the big things I remember about that game is Clinton being in plus territory, first three offensive drives, and coming away with 0 points. And
Fumbled three
like I
times in the
said,
red zone.
I I'm like I said, of course I'm diehard Clinton fan, but I'm not biased in this fact that Wallace is a great football team. Wallace is a great football program. Against teams that good, you can't get in plus territory that many times and come away with 0 points. That's a
100%.
backbreaker. When it comes to good teams like this, man, you don't want to give them any, you don't want to help them. I mean, you don't want to give them any, legs up like that, man. You get the ball across the 50 and plus territory, you gotta come away with something, man. Those first three offensive drives kind of really, really, really set us back. I mean, it was only a 7-6 game at halftime, I want to say. And of course, we know in the second half they, pretty much pulled away from us. But I'm thinking about those first three offensive drives and just kind of, you hate to play the what if game, but man, like just what if put some. I mean, that could potentially been, you know, 18 to 21 points right there. And you got a 21-6 or 21-7 lead at halftime, and then, you ended up losing by what, two scores, right at well about 17. So right around two scores. I mean, it could have a much different ball game. And I believe also in the second half we had a easy pick six, and that got dropped. So you're thinking about, man, that's four potential scores right there. Like I
Yeah.
said, I hate to play the what if game. Yeah, against a team this good, man, you can't. You can't make that many mistakes. So that's one of my keys to Friday night, man. We get plus territory, or you gotta try to come away with something. And turnovers, penalties, all that jazz going to come into play as well. But yeah, Wallace this is a good football team that's coming to Dark Horse Stadium Friday night, and like I said, you don't want to make any mental mistakes to help them out, because like I said, they're good enough. I mean,
Oh
they
yeah.
can
Oh yeah. We've been told, through various people that they feel like that this is one of the best collection of running backs that they've had in a while. Now, we remember Kanye Roberts, who's now at Appalachian State. We remember Javonte Williams, who is now in the NFL with the Broncos, went to Carolina. Those guys are individually just, great guys. This may be the best collection of a three-headed monster backfield that they've had in quite some time. And now, coming from, like I said, all of the great running backs they've had of years recent, that's saying a lot. But the thing that I've heard early on through the scrimmages and through their initial game with Havelock was that they do have some defensive growing pains. Those running backs that are playing offense are not playing defense. They may at some point throughout the year, if they as they get to the bigger games, because they'll just need their athleticism at some point. But they were susceptible to the pass against Laney. Had some secondary miscues. I really think, though, that Clinton's probably going to try to come out and establish a run early on. I think they're going to run an offensive set or two that they hadn't shown yet. You remember with Knowledge Evans, last time I think we played Wallace back at home, it might have been Corey Johnson's first year.
Yeah, it
He
was.
came out in like an offset heavy package and went hurry up, which we had never done, and ran the same play about 5 times in a row, quarterback draw, but he had put 3 blockers behind the right tackle, the right guard, and the right end, and just ran heavy to one side. And Wallace, if I'm not mistaken, called a timeout on that first drive because we had got like 4 first downs in a row. And they called a timeout. I'd never seen them, be that sort of disheveled where they were like, "Oh, we got to call a timeout." So I wouldn't put it past him to come out with something different. Wallace is going to do the same, but Chris, I'd love to get your take as to what you think the keys to the games are, because I'll tell you mine, and I'll give you what mine are for Wallace to win and what mine for Clinton to win are. But I'd love to hear when we get to that point what yours are and see if we differ.
What am I? You kind of touched on it a little bit. Clinton's we gotta attack that secondary. There's something with that. There's something there in that secondary that I believe we can exploit. Like you mentioned, Laney had a lot of success in their jamboree. Also, last week, Havelock three of their four touchdowns came through the air. So I believe there's something to exploit there at their secondary. Like you said, I feel like we're going to come out and establish the run because that's a game like that. You want to establish your physicality first. You want to show them that hey, this ain't last year. You're gonna get beat up for 4 quarters. We're gonna do what we do. And Clinton's always been one that we want to run the ball. We want to establish that offensive line. Um, another one of the big keys is, like I said, the line of scrimmage, offensively and defensively, especially when you're dealing with those running backs from Wallace. I can't speak so much for the other guy, Irvin Brown. He's solid, but from what I've seen of him, and I'm not just saying this because he's family, but from what I've seen of Corbin Kerr, uh, number 0 for Wallace, if you got to hit him before he gets going. If he gets to that second level, more than likely it's going to be a big play or a touchdown. And I know we got some burners in our secondary. We got some guys with speed, but I mean Corbin, he's different, man. I feel like he can eventually end up being just as good as Kanye. I won't go so far as Javante yet because of what Javante's accomplished, but he's definitely got that, star ability, just like a Kanye Roberts, man. Just to break down his stats real quick from Friday night from the Havelock game, he had 27 carries, 267 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So
Wow.
that's
Wow.
yeah.
That's
So that's
impressive.
going that's gonna be a big point of emphasis. This man, we got to get him. If we can get him in the backfield, you got to get him in the backfield. You got to get him the point of attack. You got to get the same game tackling we saw through these the first game, the scrimmages. You got to get people flying to the ball. Like I said, that kid gets to the next level, man. It's more than likely 6 points.
Yeah. I'll say I did not get a chance to watch the game last year to see him in person. My father had passed away, and we were having a memorial thing for him that night of the game. So that was the one game that I could not be at. And so I have not seen him in person, but I've heard so many positive things. But you're right, and I think Clinton, it comes down to, can we keep our linebackers clean? That was one of the things that Savo hit on so much in the broadcast was, when you keep your linebackers clean from offensive linemen getting to them, they can visually see the ball, track it, and they don't have anybody to run to. It's just all about taking angles and going at the point of attack, and you're not having to shed blocks. And that was one of the things we did well against Northside. Now, Wallace is a completely different animal.
Oh
One of
yeah.
the things you wonder if Wallace will be a little bit different than they were in years past is maybe they don't have the quarterback mobility that they had of years past, where they could add in those waggles, them quarterback bootlegs where it was pass run option. I could be mistaken. I'm not sure if you see any rushing stats from their quarterback or maybe what his passing stats
Uh,
were.
from
Um,
what I saw in their scrimmage, the quarterback is pretty mobile. He can
okay.
move.
Okay.
Let me see if I can pull up his stat from
So
last
I
game.
didn't know. I remember the quarterbacks they've had the last couple of years have been, relatively mobile, and added that sort of third and fourth dimension of the backfield, where when he rolls out, just because he's rolled, don't think he ain't gonna take off and run. Um,
Yeah, it doesn't look like he ran much this last game, but I mean, when you got
and why would you
Corbin,
need to? You got
when
Corbin
you got
back there,
Corbin going for 267, I mean,
and that's against a Havelock defense that, yeah, it's one game, but I mean, I think you're going to have to keep. I think you're going to. I mean, gosh, Clinton just it was a good warm up game, but just it's going to be a different animal Friday night in terms of stopping the run. That's
Man,
going to be a key.
they have a really solid offensive line. I think 4 of the 5 returning starters, and they got some good size. I know one of them, one goes 6'7", 300, and there's another one I think was like 6'5", 6'6". So they got their especially I want to say it's their guard and their guard and tackle. They got some good size. So our defensive line versus their
Those big
offensive
boys.
line is going to be there's going to be it's going to be some hitting. See if I can
Yeah,
pull up
yeah.
this.
This one's going to be a good one. Yeah, I'm excited. This is one where every day is going to seem like it's just slowly creeping by because we wish we could snap our fingers and it be Friday. Um,
But like you were saying, like you pointed out in the beginning, man, the coaches' comments that kind of added a different element, a different feel to this game. And like I said, us fans weren't the only ones that noticed. I've been noticing a lot of players been using hashtag 910 All Stars now. So I believe a lot of guys have this game marked on their calendars. It's gonna be interesting. And I mean, I know I've heard interviews with Massacre in the past, and I mean, I know he's a guy that like I said, he could have been just just joking, but I feel like there was something behind that. But it's gonna be interesting to see how it plays out, man. The chess match between coaches, like I said, I'll give it to them. The guys at Wallace, man, they did a great job with their second half adjustments last year. They found something in that second half and stuck with it. And like I said, we just could never, quite figure it out. So I wouldn't be surprised to see, of course, with that offense, man. There's so many types of, variations and wrinkles that you could throw in. And like I said, like I said, Corbin may be the one that had the big game against Havelock, but I mean, they got 2 other talented running backs as well. So you can't really just focus so much solely on one player. And defensively, you really got to read your keys and, like I said, uh, linebackers staying clean, making sure they follow that ball, making the tackles, game tackling. It's gonna be a tough one, man. But I feel like this is like I said, this is that type of game, where you really get to see, exactly where you are. And I mean, win or lose, the season's not over with. Like I said, I feel like these are the 2 best teams in the 2A East. So I feel like it's a really good chance that we're gonna see each other again. So, but like I said, you really like as a coach, you really excited to see, okay, I know exactly what I need to work on, and I actually see, exactly where we are week 2 of the season, and then just keep and continue to build on that.
it does not get any easier for either team either because
Oh no, they got
Clinton's
Hoggard
got
after us.
Clinton's got they've still got Whiteville. They've still got Whiteville. We got to go to Whiteville. We still have Princeton, who last year, I think Princeton actually beat East Duplin in the regular season. I think that was the only loss that wasn't that one
Yeah,
of the only losses that East Duplin even had last year. It was a barn burner. But and of course Wallace. I mean, they've got Hoggard, and then they've got the 2A East Central, which probably is
yeah.
the hardest conference in the East, easily
Oh
with the
yeah.
way that and James Keenan's been coming back, and then you've got East Duplin. Our conference slate does not give us quite. I mean, there's easily admittable that it's not nowhere near the type of difficulty that Wallace will face in their conference, but still, this game means a lot. You got to think this is one game at a time, but um, I'm ready. I'm ready to hear your keys to the games. If you want me to go first, I'll go first. If you want to go first, you can go first.
My keys. Okay, my keys to the game for Clinton. Offensively, like I said, you got to control the line of scrimmage, limit your penalties slash turnovers. Like I pointed out last year, a team that's good, you don't want to give them that. You don't want to give them a leg up. Uh, Nadarian and his connection with the wide receivers, that's going to be big. Like I said, I feel like, that secondary is exploitable. I feel we got the athletes between Josiah, Alex, Jeffrey, that we could take a 5-10 yard pass and go 60, 70, 80 yards. We saw that firsthand. So establishing that defensively, same thing, controlling that line of scrimmage, game tackle, game tackle, game tackle. You got to have guys flying to that ball. Like you said, Corbin, great running back, break tackles. He gets to the second level. That's a touchdown. Um, for our secondary, and I mean, trust your front seven. Don't be too eager to fly up and help out with the run, because in that wing T, they from what I've seen from Wallace in the Laney scrimmage and last week at Havelock, they will pass the ball out that wing T. So like don't and they got a pretty solid tight end as well. So don't, gotta, read your keys, play your position, trust your D line, trust your linebackers do their job, but also be ready to help out just in case. But don't be too eager to fly up, because they will. I think they're looking, and I think they will be looking to try to catch us slip, because our defense is so aggressive. Um, for Wallace to beat Clinton, like I said, and feed those running backs. Like I said, man, Corbin, he's such a explosive back, man. They he's all like our Josiah McLaurin. He's a threat to score anytime you touch the ball. Defensively, and your secondary guys got to perform. They gotta make plays. Honestly, I know you talked about playing those running backs both ways. This may be one of those games where you may have to play Corbin at linebacker and Irvin in the secondary, or vice versa. Hoping Clinton makes mistakes. Hoping Clinton makes turnovers, and just play your game. That's my keys.
Okay. Those are all good. I would say I want to start offensively for Clinton. I think Clinton's going to have to find a way to be able to establish a run to set up the pass. I think they'd love to not just be one dimensional, but be balanced.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't many. There was not many, but there were two or three snaps in that
Oh yeah,
game. Dexter, he's done
definitely.
a tremendous job, but he had one snap that was really low that threw off a timing on a pass route. He had one snap that went way over the head, and Nigerian had to just pick it up. One thing that's different, I think, this year, or maybe it even started last year, is that it's no longer intentional grounding if the quarterback rolls outside the pocket and throws the ball away. Back in the Blake Smith days, Blake Smith would like try to pick up something out of nothing, and he'd get hit, and
Mm-hmm.
he'd lose 7 or 8 yards. And we used to talk about, why didn't he throw the ball away? And in high school, it's intentional grounding. I think they've changed that rule. I'm not 100%. But if they have changed that rule, in fact, where he can be outside the pocket, and if nobody's there, him throw it away. Now Darian's got to live to fight another down and know just, hey,
Just throw it away.
nobody's there, and you can't pick up a positive yard or two on the ground. Throw it out of bounds. We'll live to fight another day. So look offensively to try to see if we can establish some ground game enough to open up some of the passing plays. Somebody other than Josiah McLaurin is going to have to step up. Whether that's Jeffrey Arnett, he had a kind of hot and cold night. He had a couple drops. He had one that was wide open on a
Well,
deep
oh
ball,
yeah.
and threw it perfect, and it just went right through his hands. And that's uncharacteristic of Arnett, but he's going to have a big game too, catching the football. Um, and it's just who's going to be that third wide receiver? Who can be? Is it Alex Evans? Does he come out from? Does he play a little bit both ways? If they do decide to spread it out more and provide some relief, because he can take it to the house too, and he's got good hands. Let's not forget he set up the play with McLaurin to defeat St. Paul's last year on the hook and ladder. So he'll be key potentially, and could get his number called offensively. As far as defense goes, you cannot let Wallace have the big play. If Wallace, you make them methodically have to go 70 yards, 80 yards, 60 yards in 10 plays, 8 plays, 10 plays. Don't allow them to take one strike and go 75-yard touchdown run, because that is just a gut punch. And a lot of times it's hard to recover from. I think you'll see a Morris how will he be? He hasn't played a ton. Will his stamina be able to be hang up with a game like this? I assume it will be. I'm assuming, I know he's worked his tail off this offseason. But defensively, can we control the run game? I think if they beat us with a pass, they beat us with a pass. But if we're forcing them to throw come to fourth quarter, I think we've got a good shot. At the end of the day, I don't think this game is one more than at a touchdown at the most. These games are usually relatively close. Usually no more than a score or two, sometimes only a point or two. I think this one could be another one. Now, personally, do we all hope what would happen could happen to a little bit of like, hey, keep our name out your mouth kind of thing? Yeah, we would all
Oh
love
man,
that
I
if you're
hope
a Clinton
I
fan.
would love it.
But do we legitimately think it's going to happen? Most likely not, because you got two great programs, two great coaches, two great teams. Only thing I will say is you can't ever count Wallace out, even if they are a running team. If you're up by 14, you better try to get up 28, because just like Havelock saw last week, they were up 21-7, and then the game ended up being like a 1 point game at the final because Wallace was able to turn it on. They get big plays, special teams, kickoff. Will we figure out?
Oh
One thing
yeah.
that scared me last week, and I know you were probably sitting at the house wondering what the heck is. Even though Nigerian could kick the ball good on kickoffs, that's your starting quarterback out there on kickoffs. So that's kind of tough. And the one kickoff that they returned for the touchdown, he's out there and he had one of the opportunities to make a tackle. And you're just thinking like, oh, I don't want my start quarterback out there trying to make tackles. Um, so they did take him off a kickoff. I don't think it had anything to do with anything with like him not, because he was booting the ball just as far. But I think they strategically with the Sumter boys, I think they don't kick it as far, but I think they directionally kick it well enough, and they just changed their strategy. So I would imagine that they'll probably try to do more directional kicks against Wallace because they've got really sharp and good returners. Especially if Corbin's
I'm
back
pretty
there.
sure Corbin's he'll be back there.
Yeah, just like McLaurin, you don't punt it to him. You don't want to kick it off to him. So it's going to be a game of cat and mouse. I'm really excited. One thing I'll implore anybody out there that's planning on attending this game: get
Get there early.
there early, because the last I heard is the gate is going to open at 6 o'clock. The game will kick at 7. The gate opened at and personally, I think they should probably open it at 5:30. But you know how schools are. I mean, you got to find people to work the gate, and you got to be there
Oh
early, and
yeah.
then you got to babysit the fans for another hour and a half because with security until they make sure they don't get crazy before the kick even starts. But there were people still in line with 2 minutes left to go into the first quarter last week against Northside, and
Mm.
Northside didn't bring a
Nearly as
quarter
much as what Wallace is going to bring next
that
week.
Wallace is going to bring, and there was Clinton of course had a good home crowd, but you're talking a home crowd and a visiting crowd that's going to surpass. I mean, it's going to be probably the highest attended game of the year for Clinton. It's going to be the biggest gate.
Oh yeah.
So if you're not in line when that gate opens at 6 o'clock, then you might miss some of the first quarter. It might get into the second quarter. I've seen games in the playoffs get like that before, where it be 10 minutes to go in the second quarter, and there's still people coming in. You don't want to be that person. So if you're going to the game, get there early. Get there 5:30 and stay in line 30 minutes. You'll be the first one in there.
Hey, trust me, it's going to be worth it. It's going
Yeah.
to be worth it.
Hey, you gonna find you a direct flight back up to North Carolina so you can cover this game?
Man, I would absolutely love to. Unfortunately, I used all my PTO on. We got a family vacation coming up, so
I'm messing
you
with you,
know.
man. Hey, you'll be in the next best spot, man. You be listening.
Hey, oh yeah, definitely, definitely. I'll be listening in to you guys, and you guys do a great job. And once again, if you want to give the listeners you guys' websites and everything so they can listen. I say it, but I don't
Yeah.
think I say it right.
No. So there's two ways to listen for anybody that wants to join in, and I'll try to post a link on Preps on Friday for anybody that wants to find it. And you can follow obviously Chris and I on Twitter, um, and we'll have the links there as well. But it's basically it's www.mixlr.com/oldies1170, and you click on that link, or go to oldies1170.com, click on that link, and you'll see the play button. You click it, you got live streaming. We actually are going to start going on the air. We've been going on at about 6:30 with kickoffs at 7. I think we're going to actually start going on the air at 6:15, because Stabel brings, like we joked last week, a little bit different dimension than Ron and myself. He's got so much material
Oh yes.
that we like to be able to share it and let him just spew off stats that just come out of nowhere. So I think we're going to try to go on the air each game now about 15 minutes earlier than even before, just so we can get all that information on there. But yeah, that's oldies1170.com or mixler.com/oldies1170. Chris, you do a great job with this podcast, man. I appreciate you having me, dude.
No problem. I appreciate you taking the time, man. Like I said, we gotta do this again. Call
Oh
you
yeah,
up, call you call you anytime. But man, forgot to mention last week, jumping back real quick. Like I said, I wanted to have a Buck Sweep podcast play of the game, and last week it was Josiah McLaurin, obviously. And also, like I said, I always feel like the big boys, interior defensive linemen, offensive linemen don't get enough attention and love. So I got my trench warrior of the week, and for last week against Northside, it was our starting right guard senior Connor Boyette. Did a great job opening up some of those
oh
holes
yeah.
for the Josiahs to run through. So that's
One
the
of the
player
big
of the
uglies. You got
game.
to give love to the
Oh
big
yeah,
uglies.
gotta give love to the hog mollies. But
The
man,
hog
once again,
bodies.
man, I appreciate you coming on. Any final thoughts?
I was just going to say, yesterday was the last Saturday without college football for like the
Oh
next
man.
5 months. I'm
Oh yeah.
ready, dog. I'm ready.
Oh yes.
Hey,
See what
and
see what see,
in about 13 days we get to find out in Charlotte.
who's the real
Battle of the
Carolina?
Carolinas. Yeah.
Who's the
Oh
real?
yeah. Well, we already know
We
the answer.
already know.
We
We
already
already
know.
know who the real Carolina is, but
Yeah,
we
that's
just want
right.
college game day, and everybody's gonna be there, so it's gonna be exciting, man. Drake May,
You know,
can't wait.
well, hey, I wonder what they'll do. I wonder because it's a neutral site game and there's two, North Carolina, South Carolina. To be sure, they can't bring just one guest picker on that's from either of the other schools. Like if you bring Darius Rucker on there, who is a huge South Carolina fan on there to pick, I mean, you gotta you gotta like you got to get somebody else from the North Carolina side to kind of equal him out. Like we'll see. I don't know if they've got who the guest picker is going to be yet for that, but I will be in Charlotte for that one. But I'm more
Oh,
excited
nice.
about this. I will be more excited about this Wallace Clinton matchup on
Oh yeah,
Friday,
definitely.
and
Oh,
and
definitely.
uh, and so I look forward to seeing everybody there. Hey, if you are in Dark Horse Stadium and you get a chance, I'm high up in the booth. Come by, stop by, say hey, check it out. Check out the podcast each and every week. Chris Harris do a phenomenal job, and follow him on Twitter. And
Oh yeah,
I'm looking forward to the next one, man.
oh yeah. I appreciate you coming on, folks. I appreciate you guys for listening. Be sure to like, subscribe to the page. We got a YouTube channel. I'll post everything in the links and in the comments below. And once again, thank Jonathan Griffin for coming on. And this is Buck
Yeah,
Sweet
man.
Sports Podcast. Voices from the Stables. Go Horses.
Go Horses.